In an effort to create a more resilient and stable financial system while strengthening consumer protection and market conduct in the financial services, the Twin Peaks model has been proposed and is currently being discussed. It is going to redefine the roles of the Financial Services Board and the South African Reserve Bank. With the hopes of greater accountability within the sector as well, the Twin Peaks model will see the FSB undergo a fundamental restructuring so it can assume the functions of market conduct regulator. Recently, the Minister of Mineral Resources, Mosebenzi Zwane, complained about the banks and called for a judicial commission of inquiry, and the FSB received a complaint about VBS Bank regarding its activities. Now, to clarify these complaints and to discuss the role of the FSB as well as how the Twin Peaks model is going to work and also how it's going to benefit consumers, we are joined by the Deputy Executive Officer of FSB, Caroline Da Silva. Caroline, pleasure to have you with us.
Hello, Tim.
Right, the Financial Services Board carries a huge responsibility. Let me just start by explaining, and you help me do this,
Okay.
who FSB is and what you do.
Okay, so the Financial Services Board currently is the regulator and supervisor of financial institutions from a non-banking perspective. So we regulate all financial service providers, insurance companies, pension funds, collective investment schemes, investment managers, even the stock exchanges, and we license them and we supervise them to ensure that they deliver good outcomes to customers.
And Ponzi schemes, do you regulate them?
No. And because Ponzi schemes are essentially criminal businesses, and you
Yes.
can't license a criminal business. But the Ponzi schemes and the jurisdiction over Ponzi schemes fundamentally lies with the National Consumer Commissioner. But wherever a Ponzi scheme pretends to be a licensed financial service provider, puts itself out like it's a financial service provider, pretends it's doing legitimate business, then the FSB can get involved and say you are abusing the legitimate licensing process of financial service providers. You cannot be licensed, and obviously with it being criminal behavior, we involve the SAPs and the asset forfeiture units.
Now, let's talk about that. There are many of them. I'm sure currently as we speak, there should be a few that are operating at the moment. But the most publicized one in recent times is Triple M. And investors in Triple M swore by it and were protecting, defending, and promoting it, even in the media for that matter. What was wrong with that Ponzi scheme?
Well, a Ponzi scheme essentially means that depositors' money comes into it. They don't invest it in anything to help it grow. They simply take investors' money and pay new investors out of old investors' money at huge returns. So they think they're getting the returns back, but eventually it's not sustainable. You can't continue to pay new investors out of old investors' money. The money runs out, and then everybody's bankrupt.
Okay.
So this money goes into their business, they use it on their own lavish lifestyles, they pay a few people out huge returns, and those people that get huge returns obviously advertise on behalf of the scheme and think it's working.
However way one looks at it, the Ponzi schemes are a scam.
They're a scam. They're a scam. They're a criminal scam.
Okay. What should you look out for if you're a consumer to see that this is a Ponzi scheme? Because as I say, I listen to a lot of people speak about the Triple M and they vouched for it and, you know, basically even promoting it. But for the unsuspecting people, just basic things to look at that will tell you that this is a Ponzi scheme.
The first thing is they'll tell you that there's no risk. They'll say, come in, we'll give you huge returns on your money, you'll make a fortune, you'll be rich, and there's no risk. That's your first indicator. There's no such thing as a high return with no risk. That's it. The second thing that I've seen commonly lately is that they position themselves as if they're a stokvel. And a stokvel is a group of people that know each other working for a common purpose. As soon as somebody advertises above the line on the internet, on the radio, on the television, it's not a stokvel. It can't be a stokvel because it's breaking the rules of a stokvel. So the two big things to look out for is high return, low risk, be worried.
Now, I want to go to, before I get to the Twin Peaks, I want to deal with a complaint by the minister who said that the Judicial Commission of Inquiry is required to investigate how banks operate. And the Minister of Finance responded in Parliament saying, actually, we have institutions that may be inadequately resourced or focused, but they are there to deal with complaints of this nature. What is your comment about that from the FSB point of view? Which institution between yourselves and the South African Reserve Bank would have been the appropriate one to deal with the matter that he put out there?
Okay. And I think that in answering that, we can start touching on the Twin Peaks and how it's going to improve the system. But currently the environment is that the FSB manages non-banking financial institutions. The South African Reserve Bank licenses and supervises and regulates banks, all banks. Some of the banks will also be licensed under the Financial Services Board if they're giving advice or selling other financial products other than banking products. So sometimes bank can fall under both regulators, but for different things and for different activities. And what the Twin Peaks environment does in future is it says there's two main activities that can be performed by a financial institution. One is it needs to be financially sound, so it can always deliver on its promises, which is what the Reserve Bank currently does for banks and we do for other financial institutions. And the other one is that financial institutions, including banks, should also have good market conduct to deliver good outcomes to customers. And very often these two activities can be conflicting. So the future regulator or the future structure says, let's separate the two. Let's have a dedicated market conduct regulator who won't be conflicted by the prudential issues, and let's have a focused prudential regulator for all financial institutions in each camp. So that's what the future does. But at the moment, yes, the banks are regulated by the Reserve Bank and partly by the FSB for other financial products.
Okay. When you say prudential, you mean the resilience of the system, the liquidity issues of that particular institution, right?
Yes.
And when you talk about the market related, you mean where the institution interacts with the people, clients, and so on.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yes.
Okay. Which means, I'm still staying with that point of the minister because it was a client matter. He was saying it on behalf of specific clients. Currently, which would have been the appropriate institution to go to?
Still would have been the Reserve Bank because the Reserve Bank has an overall jurisdiction on banks. And while it might not have a specific market conduct at present, not specific, it regulates the entirety of the bank and the bank holistically from...
Sure, because it was several banks that he mentioned, so suggesting some collusion on top of that. So the Reserve Bank would have been...
had all the jurisdiction.
To look at that. Now, in terms of the VBS complaint that you received recently, what does it relate to? It's about the conduct of the institution in relation to some investors and some clients. So where do you fit in there?
Okay, so VBS Bank is a licensed bank, but it's also a licensed financial service provider because it also sells other financial products other than banking products. So the complaint came through to the Financial Services Board on the basis that it's a financial service provider. The complaint was made anonymously, and we need to respect the anonymity of complainants. And we also have to respect the privacy of the complaint until such time it's been interrogated. But the complaint, if it goes to banking issues, will be referred to the South African Reserve Bank to look into. If the complaint goes to how the bank behaves in selling other financial products, it will stay with the FSB. So you can see that there is some overlap in jurisdiction that the Twin Peaks model clarifies very clearly.
Let's talk about the Twin Peaks now. And firstly, want to look at it from the point of view of the clients, consumers, right? The market side of things. What do we need to know about what is envisaged here with this Twin Peaks model?
I think the Twin Peaks model is very, very different in the future. So when I say we have a dedicated market conduct regulator, it essentially means that the Financial Services Board will close down. It will reopen as the Financial Sector Conduct Authority and have jurisdiction across all financial services, including the conduct of banks. But what the law also says, it's not just our scope or mandate that changes, it's our approach needs to change as well. So in the past, we've been very compliance-driven, very tick-the-box, very reactive to complaints. And the law says that we need to change our approach and become more proactive, more preemptive. We have to intervene where we see bad practice that may result in poor customer outcomes. And it also builds in a very strong mandate for the Conduct Authority on inclusion initiatives and financial education. So essentially it says you have to make sure all the time that financial institutions proactively manage their business in such a way that they deliver good customer outcomes. We don't become a consumer watchdog. We make sure that institutions deliver good outcomes. And it's a very fundamental shift in approach.
Well, currently, what do you do as the FSB for clients and consumers overall? You know, at what point should one approach you when what happens?
So at the moment, the Financial Services Board does have a conduct mandate, but we do it under 13 different pieces of law. So we have different registrars within the FSB, one who looks after insurance, one who looks after pensions, one who looks after financial service providers, one who looks after investments, and we all have different sectoral laws. So depending on which institution you're dealing with and what service have been delivered, there's a different regulator for each one. What the new Twin Peaks does is it consolidates all of that. It says there'll be one piece of law governing all financial institutions and one place you can go to complain and to resolve your dispute if any financial institution has, if you feel it's done poor conduct.
Okay. I've spoken about clients and consumers, but for now, even shareholders in companies can approach you, I suppose,
Yes,
if they're not
anyone
happy
can
with
approach us.
the way a stockbroker or a company is managing their shares, isn't it?
Yes. So anyone can approach us at any time if you have any concern about any financial institution in terms of its behavior, its governance, its treatment of customers, whatever it may be, they can approach us. We investigate every single inquiry. That's our duty. Sometimes we have to refer it because we don't have jurisdiction, and sometimes if it's just a customer's individual complaint about their own claim, there's a dispute resolution mechanism through the Ombudsman that's been set up to deal with those individual complaints. But if it goes to the behaviour of the institution on a whole, we'll definitely look into it.
Just as we conclude, what are the typical cases that have been or are normally referred to yourselves and that you have resolved recently that you believe we need to at least be familiar with so that we can take care, be prudent ourselves in managing our own affairs?
Yeah, so one of the big issues that we're looking at the moment is what we call the retail distribution review. And that looks at the way product suppliers reward and remunerate people who sell their products. And we feel that the incentives are structured in such a way that advisors are simply pushing product instead of giving customers proper advice. So we're intervening in the industry to change those incentives and to make sure that customers understand what they're paying for, who they're paying for it, what they should get for that service, understand the value of advice, understand what advisors need to tell them so they understand the product. And this is a big issue that goes right across the industry because we believe that the fact that you're incentivized for pushing product results in customers getting products that they don't need and getting too many of the same product because they don't want it, because they're simply trying to earn commission. So that's a big issue we've been focusing on over the last 2 years, or at least the last year with a lot of effort.
And as far as Twin Peaks is concerned, this is ongoing discussion, right? And at what point do you think the whole discussions and the resolution of the laws and so on will happen?
Okay, so we hope that the Financial Sector Regulation Bill, which sets the architecture, will be approved this year so we can put it into effect next year. And then the very next step after that is to take all these 13 pieces of law, which people managed to slip in between, and create this one comprehensive piece of law called the Conduct of Financial Institutions Act. And we have a timeline to have the first draft of that ready by next year for consultation, and hopefully the COFI Act will be enforced in effect in 2 years' time, which is this comprehensive market conduct law which protects customers.
My sense is we need to communicate more on the developments around it on an ongoing basis in the lead up to the introduction of the Twin Peaks.
I hope we do. I hope we do, yes.
And of course there are other colleagues of yours who are specialists in different areas.
Yes.
Tell them about this interview.
Yes, I will do.
Tell them that it will be useful for both of us to talk about these issues. We appreciate it.
It's a wonderful way to get the regulator to the people as well, so very important for us.
Exactly. Caroline, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.